Coming up on this episode of One-on-One Sports,
the newest updates on the coronavirus effect on the sports world.
We take a look at cancellations throughout multiple leagues.
And discuss our worst NFL free agent signings.
All that and so much more.
And it all starts
right now. Welcome to this episode of One-on-One Sports. I'm Brad Clear.
And I'm Christian Carmi. It's been a crazy week in the world of sports. So let's jump right into it with a special edition of the Quick Hitters. The recent spread of the coronavirus has impacted the sports world in many different ways, including tournament cancellations and league suspensions. Brad, what do you make of the news surrounding the latest coronavirus
So, when we think of sports, societally and globally, sports is the big escape that we all have. It's the big escape we all have from things going on in our normal lives. It's our escape from reality. It's our escape and our comfort and our happy place, right?
Yeah.
And in all different sports around the world, domestically, abroad, soccer, baseball, basketball, football, or not football, anything, you know what I'm saying?
Everything.
Or actually, yeah, with the XFL, they're probably going to do that too.
Absolutely.
The point is this. That escape that we all value so much in the world, that is valued by so many people, obviously, by how much support there is for sports, how much money there is put into sports, that escape is now gone for all of us. And it's, they're not going to sugarcoat it. It's a scary time in our world. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And I mean, they've talked about, the players' impact, the impact on the players with, Rudy Gobert getting it. But, this is way bigger than sports itself. I mean, it's just going to impact the staff everywhere. It's going to impact players' contracts. It's going to affect absolutely everything. I mean, Mark Cuban came out in his press conference saying that he's going to pay his hourly employees. They're still going to be employed, which is just great on him. I mean, they should have a league-wide policy.
And that's going to be a thing. The Sixers came out with a statement today with similar intentions. So you mentioned the low-wage workers. You mentioned the salary cap. And I know in the grand scheme of things, the salary cap is not important here. However, for the NBA's sake, right? The salary cap for next year will be lower because there's going to be less basketball-related income and revenue coming into the league. So, again, is that important? No. People's lives, people's safety is more important, but it's still a reality we have to look at. And now we look at the XFL. The XFL depends significantly, on in-season ticket revenue.
It's their first year.
Exactly. Now they're going to play the rest of the season, if they play at all, with no fans there.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they're the only one professional sport going on right now still is professional golf, and they can do it. I mean, it's just you can't even go 6 feet around these players, but it's one of those things where what's happening with the NFL draft? Is that going to happen? Is it going to be virtual? I mean, we can still do it, but it's
I don't think if I had to guess, I don't think the NFL draft happens as it normally does. I think that's going to be a remote thing. And that's the only thing. The NFL's free agency period, the NFL draft, those things will happen because they don't have to happen with in-person gatherings. NFL free agency will continue to happen. The draft will have to be done remotely, like you said. But the thing is, too, we also have to think of it is the ramifications in all these leagues and teams, because the seasons are suspended now. What happens? Can they pick it up? If they do, how is that formatted?
Exactly.
If it's not picked up, is the season just like the 1994 strike in baseball just ended and it's just to this point in history and nothing else happens? How does this all end and become okay to start playing again? There's so many questions we don't have answers to.
It's crazy how quickly this escalated. I mean, last night, we all found this out.
9:15 to
9:15 last night, and it's just crazy how real it became. I mean, for all of us, really. I mean, you look at yesterday, we were like, oh, we don't know. There's no cases around here. We're fine. But, when someone in the NBA gets it, and then, Tom Hanks gets it. I know this isn't a sports show, but it's crazy how much it escalated in the last, 24 hours.
Yeah, but the most important thing, again, we have all these ramifications in sports. We've seen Italian soccer players have it, NBA players have it, countries' entire ecosystems and normal functions of life be completely disrupted. That's what's more important than sports here, is how greatly affected everyone is in the world, and this is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. So all we can wish for here and hope for is continued safety for everyone around the world, and hopefully at some point things can return to normal in the sports world and for people in the world as a whole.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about it is I'm so sad for those seniors for March Madness. I mean, that's just really sad. They'll never get to play again in the tournament. It's really heartbreaking to see. And they already canceled, the college baseball World Series. That's also heartbreaking. That's in June. They already canceled that. That's crazy.
WrestleMania probably getting postponed as well.
Of course.
So many factors, so many areas that are being affected. All we can hope for is that everyone stays safe and that this can be improved upon as soon as possible. That's all the time we have here for the Quick Hitters, but stay tuned as our continued coverage of the sports world and coronavirus continues after this.
An hour before this taping on Thursday, the NCAA announced that they are canceling all remaining winter and spring tournaments, including March Madness. I'm joined here with Lily Gardner and Gray Ost to discuss all the implications surrounding this season's college sports and how this affects college basketball going forward. So, guys, what do we think about all this?
To be honest with you, I'm super bummed out, but I totally understand why they've made this decision. It's obviously best for the athletes, and since they're not getting paid, they shouldn't be profiting off of the tournament if their athletes aren't going to be protected.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with you there. It's just so sad.
I know.
Really? I mean, the seniors.
The poor seniors.
It's the most wonderful time of the year for a basketball fan in general. And now, just with the outbreak of the coronavirus, I totally agree. Like, we got to cancel it. We got to shut it down. It's just bumming out as a fan, like me selfishly saying that I just wanted to see it. But I think we all wanted to see it. And it's just a bummer that we can't have it this year. But.
And the NCAA, I mean, this is going to lose money for universities. This is like all of the revenue that's going to come from this completely gone for this year. It's really quite crushing.
Oh, especially with those small schools, they get a nice little pension just for going to the tournament. And now they can't get that. And some schools, they may have to benefit off of it, and now they can't get that money. So.
Of course.
What's really getting me, I think, is the senior class. It's their last year able to play, and Ivy League schools don't allow for red shirts. So what are they supposed to do?
Like with Ivy Leagues, like you mentioned just now, like we had Cassius Winston from Michigan State. Him, especially with the loss of his brother this year. I mean, it's been a tough year for him, and now he can't go play in the NCAA tournament. At Michigan State, people thought they had a chance to win a national championship, and now he won't get the shot.
Who do you guys think is most affected by this? Who do you think will suffer the most out of this whole thing? If you want my opinion, I got to think it's the players. I mean, you have so many players that increase their draft stock, just for the NBA draft, and now they're not going to get that chance, they're not going to get that shot.
Well, like people say, you're 0-0 in March, and now that's no longer a thing. So that's really disappointing for those teams that could have come back and really proven themselves during this month. They're unable to.
Why do you guys think that it was canceled rather than suspended?
I think canceled because we don't exactly know what this outbreak, what the future lies for it. We don't know if there's going to be it's going to continue being an epidemic or whether it's going to maybe people find a cure somehow. But there's no timetable for this kind of thing because it is so new. And so I think that's why we had the inclusion of the spring sports as well. So no college baseball World Series, no wrestling, no anything like that, no softball. And so there's just no timetable for return.
Yeah, I think honestly, if they suspended the tournament, then it would leave so much uncertainty for the athletes themselves, coaches, people that work there. They have lives that they have to maintain as well. So I guess canceling it is pretty forward.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Is there anything else you guys have? Any last thoughts?
I'm just
sad.
Yeah, I'm just bummed out a little bit.
What are we supposed to do?
What are we supposed to do from mid-March until April now? Because we're already going to have to go home for 2 weeks, and now we'll have these just to sit around, I guess. But I mean, it is what the sports world needs. Everybody stay healthy, wash your hands, do everything you can to get healthy.
It's really a sad and really unprecedented day in sports world. So we'll certainly keep you guys posted as more news comes out. But that's all the time we have from the Hardwood. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 101 Sports for all the latest sports news and content.
The NHL announced today that it is suspending its season indefinitely following the lead of the NBA doing so last night. Today I am here with Matt and Owen to discuss the ramifications of the season being paused and who the NHL award winners would be to this point in the season. So Matt, we'll start with you. Hypothetical scenario. Were the season to pick back up in 30 days, 45 days, 50 days, whatever, what impact do you think this pause in the season would have on the current NHL landscape?
So there are a couple things that could happen. If it does happen that it's a very short period between 30 and 45 days, it is really going to hurt the momentum of some of these teams that are trying to fight for playoff spots. If you look at teams like the Rangers, the Canucks, the Islanders, who are just 1 to 2 points out of the playoffs, and they're hot right now. Yep. They're not going to have that same momentum that they have right now, and we're not sure how they're going to be able to bring it back if they have to start up quickly again. So that could be a really big downplay for them, and that's going to what's going to help is the teams that are in those 7 and 8 spots in the playoffs. That is what's going to be the difference between those teams.
Owen?
Well, I'm alarmed by the layoff as well. I think it's going to harm everyone, but not just those bubble playoff teams. I think you have some teams that are rolling right now. I'm thinking of the Flyers, some teams that have momentum. They're climbing to the top of the standings, but like just this long layoff of play, like we wonder what it's going to do with the chemistry. I'm also even thinking of the teams that are at the bottom of the standings that are using these opportunities to get their AHL guys some experience, and now they can't do that. Now teams can't assess where their minor league talent is at, and that certainly has an effect as well that you got to think about.
Absolutely. Now, let's put a positive spin on this one here. To this point in the season, a ton has happened, a ton of great things we've seen. Let's look at some of the awards. Let's start with the Hart Trophy. To this point, who would you have as the Hart Trophy winner in the league so far?
Well, for me, I think it's got to be Leon Draisaitl.
100%.
For the Edmonton Oilers, I mean, we're talking about the most valuable player here, and with Connor McDavid going down, he would be the one other guy that I would say. Draisaitl has a comfortable lead on the rest of the league. The only person above 100 points right now, and he's just rolling. He's playing with Yamamoto and Nugent Hopkins on the second line for the Oilers and putting up these league-leading numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know who else he would give it to.
Yeah, no question.
Exactly. There's no question about it. He leads the league in points with 110. That's 13 better than the second best, who's his teammate, Connor McDavid, who was injured just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's just running away with this. He leads his team, the Oilers, in points, goals, and assists. There's no question about it. He is the number one player in the NHL right now, and he deserves the MVP
So now,
trophy.
one that we're sure going to have some disagreement on, Calder Trophy, Rookie of the Year. Who do you think is at that spot right now?
For me, it's actually, I think we talked about this earlier, it's a battle of the defensemen right here. For me, it's Adam Fox of the New York Rangers. He's obviously been one of the most consistent players, at least rookie-wise, in the NHL. He's played all 70 games that they've played. He is one of 4 Rangers to play all the games, and he's one of 2 defensemen to play all 70 games. Along with that, he's got 34 assists, and he's 4th in the NHL for defensemen with a plus-minus rating of 22.
Yep.
He's been all over it, and he's just been outstanding this
Owen,
season.
who would you have?
I would have to strongly disagree with you here. I think that your Rangers bias is coming into effect, and I think you are disrespecting Cale Makar. He is an absolute wizard. 50 points on the year for the Avalanche. That's an unbelievable offensive production for the Colorado Avalanche, and also being relied on heavily. 21 minutes of ice time per game is his average. If you're being relied on already to do that, offensively, defensively, he's top 5 on the team in plus minus as well. I think there's no question Cale Makar deserves this award.
We can really compare these two players, though. You said he only has 50 points and he's averaging 21 minutes per
Only
game.
50 points.
Well, just wait. What I'm trying to
Okay.
say is, Adam Fox, he has 42 points and he is averaging 19 minutes a game. There's not that big of a difference between the two players, and I think if you think about it, I think Adam Fox has a bigger impact for his team, especially with the weakness that the Rangers have on the defensive side of the puck.
And with the trades they made.
Especially with the trades he's made, he has a bigger impact on the game than he does.
I would have to disagree because I think when the Avalanche go on the power play, right, you set up Gerard, Makar at the top. You just have them do their thing. Then they got to worry about McKinnon, Landeskog. It's fun to watch, and I think Cale Makar is a big part in quarterback.
But nonetheless, we look at Fox, we look at Makar. Both are going to be studs moving forward. And here from our desk to everyone in the hockey world, we hope everyone stays safe and play can come back to normal in the NHL as soon as possible. That's all we'll have from the rink, though. Up next, we'll head to the pitch. Stay tuned. With half of the round of 16 second leg matches wrapped up, the Champions League announced that it's postponing next week's quarterfinal matchups. A handful of players have also come into contact with the coronavirus, and the United States' MLS has suspended play for 30 days. I'm here with Will Tunis to break down the latest updates from the Champions League and soccer as a whole. Will, whichever league you want to start with, let's just get into it because there's a lot of meat here with this global situation of soccer.
Oh yeah. So like you said, we'll just start with the MLS. Like you said, suspended for 30 days.
Yeah.
That I would not be surprised at all if that gets elongated, like for maybe the whole season. We honestly have no idea. Other domestic leagues, the Premier League, at the moment they're staying behind closed doors, no fans. But on it, like MLS, you wouldn't be surprised if that turns into something more, like where it gets suspended indefinitely.
Yep.
Arsenal just played Olympiacos, got knocked out of the Europa League. Their owner tested positive for coronavirus.
Arsenal's did?
No, Olympiacos.
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
But it was reported that the Olympiacos owner met with some of the Arsenal players after, shook hands. That allowed the Man City versus Arsenal game to be postponed. And now Brendan Rodgers, the manager of Leicester City, said that 3 of his players are showing symptoms of the coronavirus. So,
and then we look in Serie A. We talked about how Italy, unfortunately, has been hit very hard by the coronavirus. We saw yesterday Juventus, I forget the name, a player in Juventus tested positive for the virus as well. So what do we look at as a Serie A impact from the coronavirus?
Serie A was the first one to suspend their league indefinitely. Daniele Rugani from Juventus tested positive, as well as Manolo Gabbiadini for Sampdoria tested positive. So that has prompted players like Ronaldo specifically, who went back home to Portugal. He's not coming back to Italy as his teammate tested positive for coronavirus. So it's a matter of these domestic leagues figuring out what they're going to do about qualifying for a Champions League, relegating teams, promoting teams from lower leagues.
That was going to be my next question, where we look at Champions League specifically. Champions League obviously dependent on the final season standings of the domestic leagues. So if these seasons are suspended, how do we move forward with subsequent Champions Leagues moving forward?
Yeah, a good example of this is in the Bundesliga, where in the second division, a player tested positive, and so some are saying suspend the season, just cancel it altogether, don't return it. But then there are reports saying that they may play next season with additional teams, like promoted teams, but they won't relegate teams. But then how do you decide who gets the top positions for Champions League?
Yeah.
A lot of these end up being separated by a few points either side, both relegating, promoting, and Champions League. So determining who deserves that, who deserves the title in general, it's hard to do when you aren't able to finish these seasons.
Yeah, and we look specifically with the Premier League, right? The top 4 head on to Champions League. So when we look at the Premier League specifically, where do we look at maybe a team, a player, a situation, whatever, where this pause in the season and potential suspension of the season as a whole, what team or player or individual do you think gets the most impacted by this suspension?
For me, it's got to be Liverpool. Absolutely destroying the Premier League right now. Honestly, if they were to give them the title, I think every fan has accepted that they're going to win the Premier League title, whether you like it or not. They haven't won it in a very long time. And so if they cancel the season, will they award them the title?
Yeah.
Will they not? Because mathematically, it's still possible
Unlikely,
for them
but possible.
to somehow manage to come in second.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. So it's that.
It's an unknown. It's totally unknown.
Yeah, you don't really know whether to just give it to them, which is going to cause controversy amongst all other soccer fans. But the league is just so far apart between first and second right now that it wouldn't be surprising if they did.
Yep.
But it's hard to determine which way they'd go.
Yep. Well, nonetheless, an unprecedented situation going on in global soccer. Who knows what's going to happen in the Champions League of these domestic leagues?
Not me.
We have no idea. It's all craziness. That's all we have here from the pitch, but coming up next, we'll have continued coverage of the coronavirus's effect on the sports world. Don't go anywhere. NFL free agency is set to begin next week. The legal tampering period begins on Monday, with free agency itself beginning on Wednesday. With the quarterback carousel, a potential new CBA, and even more developments throughout the league, Cole and I are here to discuss this huge upcoming free agency and new league year. So Cole, we're going to start it out. A couple things we'll talk about. First, we're going to go into quarterbacks. We got to talk about Tom Brady.
Yeah, he's the biggest name in
Absolutely.
free agency right now.
Right now, we're looking at it, taking the temperature of the room. Where do we think Brady ends up, and how do we think the competition for him goes?
So there's always the possibility of him returning to New England if they bring the weapons that he needs.
Yeah.
But if he hits free agency, which would be the first time in his career, you got a team like the LA Chargers, and then the Raiders could potentially bring him in if they deal Carr away. And then you got Tennessee and Tampa Bay needing quarterbacks potentially. And there's even rumors about the San Francisco 49ers moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo and taking Tom Brady.
I don't buy the San Francisco aspect. The way I would look at it is this. I would say I still have a hard time believing he does not end up back in New England, but I don't think it's far-fetched to think he won't be back there. I would putting percentages on it.
Yeah.
I would go, I would see get your thoughts on it too. 55% New England, 20% Tennessee, 20% the Chargers, and then 5% the field. So that's the way I would look at it. I think New England, but if not, I think it's an equal chance between the Titans and the Chargers.
I think New England has a strong chance of bringing back Tom Brady. But you also have to think about a team like Tampa Bay, who said yesterday that Tom Brady will have full control of the roster if he chooses Tampa Bay. And a roster that's already loaded with talent on offense, and a nice warm weather town like Tampa Bay could be really enticing for Tom Brady and free agency.
And we talk about weapons, Mike Evans,
exactly.
Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, if they want to use him right. They got a really good defense. So the Tom Brady thing is the biggest aspect here, but let's move away from Tom Brady. So many other quarterbacks in this quarterback carousel. Phillip Rivers, Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston. So is there any player that you look at as being very interesting as far as where they may end up?
I think Teddy Bridgewater is very interesting. We had kind of like wondering how Teddy Bridgewater would come back from his injury. 5-0 already with this season this year, filling in for Drew Brees in New Orleans. He's going to get big money for this free agency, I think.
Yeah, and I look at Teddy Bridgewater, I look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, they got that great defense under Todd Bowles. They don't need to pursue tons of points with the volatility that comes with it. Teddy's safe. I think they'll win more games with him than Jameis. So I like Tampa for him. Another thing, too, Phillip Rivers. The Colts have been largely rumored. Do you think Phillip Rivers ends up with the Colts, or do you think there's another destination that may become in play for him?
I can see that with Phillip Rivers, but what I see from Phillip Rivers is more of a bridge quarterback guy, or maybe a team that wants to win now. Because Phillip Rivers openly said he has maybe 2 years left. I'm looking at maybe 1 year left.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So he's not even going to be around that long. I don't know why you want to bring him in unless it's to train a young guy like Tua Tagovailoa who could redshirt his first year.
Yep, and then one other thing with the quarterback position, there are a lot of quarterbacks that are in play here. One guy is going to inevitably get the short end of the stick, so to speak, and not get a starting spot somewhere. I think that may end up being Jameis Winston. Where do you think Jameis Winston figures into this whole scenario?
So there's a lot of teams that need a veteran backup. And whoever gets the short end of the stick might end up going to a team that needs that veteran backup. So with Jameis Winston, that could be going to a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who showed this year they needed a true experienced guy behind Ben Roethlisberger. And two other quarterbacks that kind of fit that role would be Marcus Mariota and Case Keenum, both set to hit the free agency this year.
Real quick, one last thing. If the CBA gets ratified before next Monday, what player do you think would benefit the most from there being only one tag available to each team?
In my opinion, it's either Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill with the Tennessee Titans. Both need a contract, but if you have an option to tag one, the guy who doesn't get tagged, I think, benefits. He'll get the long-term extension with Tennessee. What is your thoughts on it?
For me, Amari Cooper. If there's one tag, it's going to Dak. Amari's going to become a free agent. He's probably about the 11th or 12th best wide receiver in the league. And then overall, in the short turnaround from the tagging deadline to free agency, I think Cooper could be in for a big bag this free agency.
Yeah, I agree.
But remains to be seen. A ton going on in this new league year coming up. That's all the time we have here from the NFL Free Agency Gridiron. Where do you think the top NFL free agents and quarterbacks will end up? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content and coverage of the NFL offseason.
With NFL free agency set to begin next week, it's time for Brad and I to take a look back at some of the worst NFL free agent signings of all time. So Brad, who's your worst signing in NFL history?
So I look at the Washington Redskins in 2009. Albert Haynesworth, a stud defensive tackle, at the time was coming off of a career season. He did stomp Andre Gerrard in the years prior to that. Not a great moment, obviously. But the Redskins went out there. I remember this. So I remember this vividly because free agency started at midnight. I remember waking up that day and seeing on the ESPN ticker at the bottom that Albert Haynesworth had a 7-year, $100 million contract with the Redskins. I forget the guarantees. I think it was around 40, something like that. Albert Haynesworth went on to be, to put it mildly, a total bust. 2 years into that 7-year, $100 million contract, he was traded for I believe to the Patriots for a 5th-round draft pick. He flamed out there. He flamed out very quickly. He didn't really seem to care that much once he got paid. And the production that was there before, an elite-level interior defensive lineman for the Titans, became nothing more than an overpaid, out-of-shape, absolute bust of an all-time level contract. Dan Snyder, man, and I'm sure you're going to get into it also.
Oh, I'm
sure. The Redskins and Dan Snyder, they have been dealing out these bad free agent contracts.
Yeah, I'll give you another one from the Washington Redskins just to stay on topic and how so terrible they are. Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
He was 33 years old.
Washed.
They gave him a 7-year, $56 million contract. I mean, are you, like, why?
When he was washed. He was done.
Absolutely washed, absolutely done. He lasted a year on a 7-year, $56 million contract. I'll give you another one, too. Michael Vick, the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, a 6-year, $100 million contract. Why? Literally, why?
Well, I'll tell you this. In the season or two prior to that contract, because remember when Vic was brought back into the NFL after his prison stint for the dogfighting charges, he played very well and he was given the opportunity for the Eagles. They rewarded him afterwards. So the years prior to the contract being doled out,
he was
good.
Extremely injury prone, right? And coming off a 2-year stint, I mean, it's still been $100 million, 6 years.
But we also the number
exactly.
what matters with the NFL contracts though is what the guarantees were, which we don't remember offhand. But he was good in the years coming to that.
It's true.
And when contracts are signed to the NFL, it's largely with the intent of it being about half of the total term.
Yeah.
So I'm not that angry or negative on that contract. One other contract, this is a pretty solid player who's still going today at a high level. Ndamukong Suh, when he signed with the Dolphins, 6 years, $114 million. At that point, the largest guarantee for a non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. He lasted 2 or 3 seasons under Adam Gase, and he was gone. So Ndamukong Suh is a good player, still is. He played for Tampa Bay last year.
Absolutely.
But he lasted 2 or 3 years into the biggest contract for a non-quarterback ever. Nonetheless, a lot of bad money doled out in these contracts.
Absolutely. What free agency blunders come to your mind? Be sure to let us know down below and follow us on social media at 101 Sports.
Welcome back to this episode of 101 Sports. Unfortunately, we have some important updates to the status of 101's spring semester.
As we featured throughout the episode, the recent outbreak of the coronavirus has affected not only the world of sports, but numerous countries around the world. Here at Elon University, we'll be operating online for 2 weeks once spring break is over. The uncertainty of the situation surrounding the virus and our extended break locally has left us with no choice but to pull our show on a break until further notice.
With that being said, we here at 101 Sports will continue to produce content and distribute it online throughout the next coming weeks, bringing you the best content that Elon Student Media has to offer. We'd like to give a special shout out to our outgoing senior hosts, Andrew Vandelis and Brad Clear, along with talent Christian Carme and technical director and former executive producer Evan Abenstein for their 4 years of hard work and dedication to this organization. We certainly hope this isn't the last time they step up to the plate for the quick hitters, tackle the tough questions surrounding sports, and even overreact to things like Ravens, Sixers, and Patriots from time to time. We would also like to thank our advisors, Katie Halter and Max Nagin, along with show producer Luis Mueller, and the rest of our amazing crew for giving it their all throughout the year. And we look forward to bringing you the latest and greatest sports news content out there. From all of us here at 101 Sports and the Elon Sport Vision family, whose side are you on?